Hey, podcast friends. This is Dr. Steve Hewlett with the podcast, Simple Healthy Choices for Weight Loss, where every week we help people who have realized that as their health has been declining over the years, the number of medications they are being prescribed is increasing. We want to help you reverse this health path so you can live the vibrant, pain-free, and hopefully medication-free life you deserve to live. If you'd like even more information on this topic, you can go to Amazon or Audible and pick up my book, Your Plate is Your Fate. And if you think my book helps you on your new health path, please tell your friends and leave a review where you purchased it. Hey, welcome back, podcast friends. And in today's episode, I've got my beautiful wife, Theresa, with me again. And today we want to talk to you about goal setting. And I know we've done this in the past also, but I just don't think you can ever hear too much about goals. And the main thing with the goal setting is first, before you set a goal means that there's something in your life that you want to improve, whatever that is. It could be where you go on a trip. It could be what you do with your life. It could be what you do with your weight, whatever. You want to improve your life, so you need to set a goal. So you really, really need to realize, why are you setting that goal? And make it fun. Make it something that you really enjoy. It's like, I'm setting this goal because when I reach this goal, I'm going to be a better person than I am now in whatever way. So you need to make sure that you set a goal that really means something to you first. And then after you set your goal, you're going to want to just look at the steps that you take to get there. However, be very careful when you do this, because if you talk to a lot of people who own small businesses and they've been in the business for 20 years or so, and they love what they do, and you ask them, do you love what they do? And they said, yes, they are so glad that they started the small business. But then you ask them, if you had known all the steps that you had to go through before you got to this part, if you knew all these steps before you ever started, would you have started? And almost 100% of them say no. If they had known all the steps, everything they had to go through before they got there, it would have scared them and they never would have started. So the key is know where you want to go, know what steps it's going to take to get there, and then don't focus on the steps ever again. Only focus on the very, very next step. As long as those steps are leading you to your final goal, you don't need to be overwhelmed by all the steps ahead of you. Just one step at a time. So that's where...
Yeah, so that's where also whenever you set your goal, and I know that this was something that I had probably messed up with in the past, is when you set your goal, so we'll say it's a weight loss goal, and let's say maybe you want to lose 50 pounds. But when you look at that and you're excited, you're like, oh my gosh, I can do this. Maybe you heard a podcast and it inspired you to want to lose weight, or you've been wanting to for a while. And, now your feelings are like, oh, I can do this. But you really need to think about sitting down and looking at what is needed for me to lose 50 pounds. Because at first it's like, oh, I'm going to change my diet. Maybe I'm going to, move more or exercise, go for walks. Are you really willing to do that work? Because you are going to have to change, just like the name of the podcast is Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. So, you're going to be changing a lot of things. And are you willing to do that? And are you willing to do that forever? I think that was another place I made mistakes, like, oh, I'm going to lose my weight and I'm going to go back to how things used to be, because your brain wants you to stay exactly where you are. Even if you're 50 pounds overweight, your brain is like, but we're happy here, right? We do the same thing every day. We don't have to think, because our brains don't want us to have to think about anything. It wants us to be an autopilot. And so are you really willing to do the things that need to be done?
Right. Yeah. And then again, this is something that you're going to have to convince yourself, depending on how big that goal is. The main thing you don't want to do, unless it's a goal that has a time constraint, is don't try to match your goal immediately. It's not a time thing, because a lot of times you may think, oh my gosh, I'm not making advances quick enough, and oh my gosh, I'm never going to be doing it. And you overwhelm yourself and you stop. So leave that, if you can, depending on what your goal is, leave the time constraint out. If it took you 20, 30, 40 years to gain all your weight and you want to lose it, don't expect to lose it even in a year. Make your tiny steps something that you can achieve. The best way to keep with a goal is to make tiny steps and you continuously achieve those goals. And that gives you that momentum. if you make these huge goals, these huge steps, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're not going to make it, because now you've made your next step so hard, you're never going to do it. And you want to slide back. Your brain is very willing to slide back into its own thoughts. So don't do that. Make the goal that you really want to do and make the steps very small, easily manageable steps, so it keeps that momentum going towards your goal, your final goal.
Right. And something we always talk about, and so something we like to teach our clients, is to plan ahead. And so, this part just takes a little bit just at the beginning. So you want to plan ahead. And so you want to think about the obstacles you're going to come across. And then you're going to figure out, what will I do instead? So you're going to create some strategies. And so let's say you need to change from eating a bunch of ultra processed foods. Well, that means you are going to have to plan ahead and figure out what you're going to eat instead. Because if you're eating the processed foods, those are like, you got the bags of chips and cookies or whatever in your cabinet, or maybe you're at work and there's like a little, what's that room
Conference
called?
table.
Yeah.
In the conference room.
Right. In the conference room, there's food in there. And it's like, you just go in there because there's always all of this easy, accessible food.
Or you had a crazy day and you're on your way home, say, I'm too tired. I don't want to eat. I'm just going to stop by and get something quick and easy that I know is going to end up killing me.
So what are you going to do instead? Well, you're not going to be thinking about what you want to do instead at that time, because you're tired and your brain's tired, and your brain's like, well, this is what we do. And so and a lot of times you won't even realize you've even done it. You're just like totally gone through the drive-through and you're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't going to do this, So if you think about it ahead, that makes it easier for your brain at that time, because you're like, no, I've already packed me something better. I've made me something healthier, and I'm going to do that. And then you just don't even have to think about it.
And that's why we've talked on past podcasts. If you truly are wanting to quit eating just for the taste of sweet, and you truly want to start eating to nourish your body, what you really need to do is take one day a week, plan out every single meal you're going to have for that next week, go to the store and make sure you have it in the house. Plus getting all the other stuff that you shouldn't be eating, get that out of the house, because if you keep that in the house, you're going to eat it. So now you have already at the beginning of the week, you have all the food you're going to need for that week. And then every day you plan what you're going to eat the next day, because we already know things are going to change. Even within a week, within a day, things may change. So you want to be up on top of that, because you don't want to be caught with all of a sudden you're not prepared and now you're going to have to go out and eat another poisonous thing that's killing you. So you don't have to know the exact obstacle that you have, but you know about, and those are obstacles. Busy day, so you want to go through a fast food restaurant. Forgot to go to the store, so you eat whatever's in the cabinets. Those are the kinds of things, they're going to come up. So if you can plan ahead, then you're going to be able to anticipate the obstacle and then avoid the obstacle.
Well, and there are things that you have definitely come across in the past when you were trying to lose weight before. What happened to mess you up last time? Think about that, because that's going to happen again. In all of our lives, we have the same things happen over and over and over again. So how can you stop those things from happening again? And it goes back with your thoughts as well. What do you constantly think? So at the beginning of maybe you're trying to lose some weight, at the beginning, you're like, oh, I can do this. Well, a week or two in, you're like, the weight's not coming off fast enough, or it's a little harder, and your brain is now thinking a little harder because you're having to remember, which is going to be a struggle at the beginning. Not really a struggle, but it is more challenging at the beginning, because you got to teach your brain, this is what we do now, so that can become autopilot. And so you want to be thinking, what can I think instead of thinking, this isn't working this time. This never works. What was I thinking that I could lose weight? I'm never going to lose weight. These are those kinds of thoughts, but What can you think instead? And so that's another part of planning things ahead. It's like, and I think that's such a huge thing right there, because you're going to have those thoughts. So don't think bad about yourself because you've had those thoughts. They are going to pop back up. And the biggest thing is when you notice that you have thought that thought again. And when you think it, you'll be like, that's a huge step that you realize you just thought it. And you're like, oh, nope, we're not thinking that. I can do this. I can do this. This is what I'm doing now from now on.
Right.
So, we always talk about your thoughts because they are just so important, because that makes you do what you're getting ready to do next.
And that's why one of the big, big steps is when you set your goal, make sure it's a goal you really want to do and really understand why. Because when these thoughts pop back into your head, your old thoughts that are trying to keep you staying, your brain right now wants to keep you right where you are. It doesn't want you to go further. So it's going to be bringing these thoughts up all the time. And you're going to have to constantly realize, no, this is my goal. This is why this is my goal. And you're a bad thought. And I don't want you in my head anymore. And you really can do it almost like that. I mean, everybody's different, but you got to realize that bad thought is keeping you from the goal that you truly want. So you need to change that thought that's going to help propel you to your goal and not keep you from reaching that goal.
Right. And so, I mean, I think it's a great thing that our brain does that because it wants to keep us so that it's really easy for everything that we do, but that we can actually tell our brain what to do, so it's not like, I think people, and I definitely not realized that my thoughts controlled everything. You kind of feel like it's the external world, everything happening outside of you that controls your thoughts. But it's not, it's your own thoughts because anything that happens, you can decide how you want to think about it. And so if you're having a bad day, you may be having a bad day, but if you planned ahead, then you already have it planned what you're going to do. You're going to go for your walk or you've already made your chicken breasts and you've got a salad, that's all ready to go. So, at first it will be hard, but don't worry about it.
Right.
Well,
And really, as crazy as it sounds, I mean, we hear this stuff all the time, but a lot of people, maybe you guys haven't heard of it. People really think that just because they have a thought in their head, that thought must be correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually wrong. Most of the time, the thoughts that you have in your head are not correct about anything. The thoughts you have in your head are the thoughts that want to keep you staying the very same way. So just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Chances are it means it's not. So that's why it's good to learn how to change your thoughts, make it from a negative thought to a positive thought,
Mm-hmm.
to something that's going to allow you to say, yes, I can do this. And you're going to be so glad when you do.
Right. Because our brains, for some reason, they're negative thoughts. Like most people, their default is a negative thought. And so people work on that. If you're like, how are they always so positive? Well, they work on it. I mean, they're just not going to be negative all the time because our brains naturally go to the negative. And I think it's like a survival mechanism. It's like, well, something bad is going to happen if you change, even if it's eating chicken breasts.
It really is. People tend to think that way. And as crazy as you may think this sounds, what I truly do, and I've just started doing this recently in the last several months, is I'll be looking forward to something and all of a sudden a negative thought comes into my head about whatever. And immediately the first thing I think is, get out of my head, Satan, because that's the way I feel. Like that is Satan trying to bring me down, trying to keep me from reaching my goal. And it has worked. When I see that thought, when I start thinking these things like, get out of my head, Satan. And all of a sudden that makes me start thinking positive again. For whatever reason, it works for me. Try it if you want to. But just whatever it takes to keep you on track, you will be so happy that you do when you reach your goal. And that's where like Tony Robbins talks about these thoughts we have. You're wearing a track in your brain and you keep thinking that thought. And every single time you think that exact same thought, now that little track gets deeper and deeper and deeper. It becomes a little groove. And then all of a sudden it becomes a rut. And then all of a sudden it becomes a grave, if that's a bad thought. So you've got to change those grooves, get out of that rut, get out of that grave, get out of that groove, and start making new grooves. And the only way that's going to happen is you're going to have to try to keep thinking these positive thoughts over and over. And if you start thinking negative, immediately get that thought out of your head and start making the grooves, because it's fine to have the grooves in your brain as long as those grooves are on a path to the goal that you want. But if these grooves are taking you away from the goal that you want, that's the time to start changing your groove.
Right. And like we said, that's just at the beginning, it's challenging. So you always hear it's like, oh, it's 28 days to, change or to make a change and have a new habit, or it's 30 days, 90, whatever it is. Well, it's really up to you, because a lot of things Tony Robbins talks about, you think of somebody that has tried to quit smoking all their life. They have just, done everything. Just like people say they've tried to lose weight all their life. Well, just like with smoking, somebody gets a diagnosis that they have lung cancer and they will immediately stop. Immediately. And Tony Robbins talks about that. Even with thoughts that we have, we can immediately change them. Now, there are a lot of things that we don't, which is fine, but it is possible to totally change to stop that groove and you're starting a new one immediately. And so it can be done that way. And I know everybody has somebody in their life that's heard that I give the example of smoking cigarettes, but they just totally quit. And so it's not like this has to be a long drawn out thing. It's fine if it is, but it doesn't have to be.
And even Tony Robbins, I'm pretty sure it's Tony Robbins that we heard this because we've been listening to this stuff for 30 years. And I've given the example on a past podcast also, but it was a case that he really knew. And there was a man, and again, I know I've talked about this if you heard mine, but there was a man who had tried everything. He kept gaining weight. He tried everything. He tried every diet under the sun. Nothing worked. He'd lose the weight for a little bit, then he'd come back and a little bit more, and then he'd try to do something else. And he just knew, I can't do it. Just diets don't work for me. This is the way my body is. I cannot lose weight. And then all of a sudden, he found out that his daughter was having kidney failure and needed another kidney. And it just so happened when they did all the tests and they found out that he was a perfect match. However, he was too obese to go through the surgery, so he was not going to be able to give this kidney to his daughter. Now he's got a new why. Now he's not living for himself. He's living for his daughter. And you might not believe it, but he was actually able to lose his weight, have the surgery, give the kidney to his daughter, and now they are both living fine. The same man who said, nothing works. I've tried everything. Nothing works. The one thing he did not try is changing his thoughts, change his why, have a strong why. Once you do that, you'll be amazed at what you can actually accomplish as long as the goal that you're trying to get is something you truly want.
Right. And the common thing between those two stories is there is this very strong emotion. And so you have to have that emotion.
Yes.
Because, when you think about it, a lot of us, we have very strong emotions about going and having Mexican food and eating all the chips. I mean,
it's like you can't have one without the other.
That's right. We have to sit and have a couple baskets of chips, which we've done. But I know that when we go now, we don't even finish one basket. I mean, I still have to have a few. Steve doesn't have to have any, but I just want a few. But it's like, so this has been a slight change. But like, if you think about it, people have emotions about the food that they eat. Like, I always grew up eating this type of food. It's our culture. I mean, we have to have all the pasta and all the bread, and you don't have to get rid of those things forever. But I just want you to realize the emotion that's involved with our food that we're eating. And so it's like, you're going to have to find some new emotion with some new food. Maybe get excited to make some alternatives to that food.
And emotion is the key. Having the feelings, truly having feelings for something is the key to keeping something. That's why when you look back on your past, if there's anything negative in your past that's occurred to you, which happens to 100% of us, we all have negative things in the past that's happened to us. When you look back and you think about that, you can learn from that and make sure that it doesn't affect the way you go forward or it does in a positive way. However, if you look back at that past emotion and then you or that past event, and then you put emotion to it, and you start feeling how horrible that was, and you start crying, and you start delving in, what you've done is now you've just brought all that negative. Now you've changed your brain thoughts to go back and feeling that, and it gets that negativity in your body, and it does affect your entire body when you do that. That's why if you're wanting to go forward, it's fine to learn from your past, good and bad. Learn from it, but only with thought. Don't put the emotion to it. When you switch to your goals, your future goals, that's when you want to put the emotion to it. That's when you want to feel it. You want to truly feel it in your body, and that's what's going to make you want to go on. So things you don't want to, you just want to learn from, but not have feelings for, don't put emotion for. The ones that you do want, feel it. Feel like you actually have already done it. Whatever this goal is, think about how great you're going to feel. Don't think about all the little steps leading up to it. Just think about the very next step, but be thinking about how great you're going to feel when that goal is finally accomplished and how good you're going to feel about yourself. That's why doing little tiny bitty steps, you don't have to make these huge strides. Just do tiny bitty steps, just things that keep your momentum going in the right direction and keep the emotion on the positive side and only thoughts on the negative side.
So it goes back to what we talk about with planning ahead, because the emotion will pop up that you haven't been able to do this before. What makes you think you can do it this time? Yep. Because if you plan ahead and you stick to your plan 90% of the time. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can stick to it, you plan ahead, you're going to start believing that you're actually capable of doing of setting this goal. You're going to be like, I'm going to actually be able to do this. And that changes everything. I mean, if you can plan ahead, just like feeling those emotions come up, that it's like, I am doing this, even if it takes a little longer than you thought, but you're fixing those emotions to where you know that you're doing what you told yourself you were going to do, because we are the one person we lie to all the time. Like, we're lying to ourselves about, well, I'll start tomorrow, and then you don't, or, I'll start, or whatever it is. And you even know, you're just like, I ain't starting, it's like, why do I keep telling myself that? And then you just keep realizing that you lie. You don't do what you say you're going to do, and planning ahead will help you get to that way.
Yes.
Start a new groove in your brain.
Yeah. So what we've been saying is, if you want to improve anything in your life, whatever that means, we'll just go with weight loss or whatever. Think about what your goal is. What do you want to weigh? How do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? And that's the deal, is how do you want to feel when you meet your goal? If you meet your goal and you still feel horrible, then that wasn't a goal that you wanted. If you meet your goal, especially with weight loss, when you meet it, you're going to feel great about yourself. So figure out your goal, put an emotion to it, truly feel that goal. Know your why. Why do you really want to do this? Then look at where you are now and look at where you want to go and think about what steps you need to do. But all you need to do, once you kind of figure out what steps, only focus on the very, very next step. So you don't want to get yourself overwhelmed. Make it an easy step. Make it a very easy step, one that you can achieve, because that's all your thoughts too. Once you start achieving, it's like, well, I can do this again. I can do this again. And that's exactly the way you want to do. Just keep making those steps. Know that there's going to be obstacles. Try to think of as many obstacles that may be coming your way, so you already plan, when this happens, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to a party. There's going to be cake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat before I ever go to the party. So I'm not even hungry. So it's going to be a lot easier just to say another cake. Or if you just want to be, sociable, just say, I will eat just a tiny sliver, just get a taste. And that's really all you need. Because once you start tasting that taste of sugar, which is what we're talking about, everybody's so addicted to sugar. Once you get that taste after a few bites, it's not as awesome anymore. So you really could quit after that. But if you set your mind ahead of time that you will quit after that, and then you do quit after that, now you just strengthen that groove. You've strengthened your thoughts. You've strengthened the emotions that you have for your final goal. So plan what your obstacles are going to be ahead. Plan what you're going to do about those obstacles. Plan each day, plan each week. And each of these plans are just, you're putting more and more thoughts into your head of how you're going to meet that final goal. And the important reason for that is because when you do meet your goal, you're going to be so happy with yourself. Yeah. You're going to trust yourself more now. You're going to believe yourself that you can do it. So if you go to set another goal, or when you go to set another goal, because everybody who sets a major goal and they achieve it, nobody stops there. That the feeling of meeting your goal is so exciting that you can't wait to set another goal. So that's another thing. You may find that you're setting other goals along the way. That's perfectly fine. Just make sure that they all kind of go together, because you don't want to get a bunch of different paths going different directions. Just focus on, 1, 2, 3 goals at a time, but just know your why, know what you're going to do, know when the obstacles come out. Learn from your past, read the thoughts, but don't put any emotion to it. Put all your emotions towards your final outcome.
Right. And that's, if you see somebody that seems like a really confident person, that's why, because they set goals, they achieve them, and that gives them this confidence because they know that they can do what they say they're going to do.
And that's what we want you to have. We want you to have so much confidence in yourself, so much pride in yourself. And you're setting goals that are going to make you improve yourself, which is also going to improve your life. So you're going to enjoy life better. When you enjoy life better and you feel better about yourself, you will exude that, and you will attract other people who feel the same way. If you're thinking negative all the time and you have all these emotional, issues from your past, and you dwell on that, you will exude negativity and you will draw other negative people to you. And you'll never get out of that rut, because now everybody you hang around with has that same negative attitude. But when you do the opposite and you start attracting all these positive people, you all just feed off each other and you all start helping each other set goals. And then you're helping each other. Now you've got a community of all these people, all your friends. And we're talking from experience. We love our friends so much. And we all talk about what our next goal is. Where are we going? What do you want to do from now? That's how our conversations are. What are our next goals? What are we wanting to do? Can I help you do that? Can you help me do that? And it is so much more fun. And that's what we want for you. We want you to thoroughly enjoy life. And that's how you do it. Setting goals that will improve your life and then making those goals or achieving those goals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So anything else?
No, I mean, it's challenging. We know, but if you can get started on that, it really will happen. I mean, the time's going to pass anyway. So you might as well be changing your thoughts along the way. I mean, you're just going to be changing them constantly.
So first, just think, what is the biggest stress in your life right now? What is it that you think, God, if I could just do this and make it a goal, figure out what steps you need to do, change your thoughts, know why you want that goal, and just make your very first step towards that goal, achieve that, and then make the next one. Don't focus on all the steps because it's been said, and I truly believe it, a successful person makes a goal and then they know why they want that goal. And then they just start focused on each step at a time to get there. An unsuccessful person is somebody who makes a goal and then they just dwell on all the steps that it's going to take to get there. And like say you're going out to work out, somebody who really wants to work out think, okay, I'm going to go work out and then I'll be back a little bit. And they go and work out and they come back. However, the ones who really don't want to work out, but they say they do, say, yeah, I'd like to go work out, but that means I've got to get up earlier. I've got to figure out what I'm going to wear. I'm going to have to get out in the cold and I'm going to drive to the thing. Hopefully that's going to be open. I'll get in there. There's probably going to be a lot of people on the equipment. I can't even do it. And then I have to shower while I'm there when I get back. Then I've got to get in the car. I've got to drive all the way back home. And, you just think about all these drudgery steps, and that's just your brain trying to tell you to stay the way you are. So as soon as you start doing that, stop it. Just think of the very next goal, the very next step. Don't think of all the steps you have to do, because I guarantee if you sit there and try to think of all the steps, which there's no way you can, you're going to talk yourself out of it. And now you've done the opposite. Now you don't feel good about yourself. And so now if another goal comes up, you're like, well, I won't meet that one either because I've never met my goals in the past. That's the negative thoughts that we want to get out of your head. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. Chances are it's not true. So that's why we say you have to change your thoughts in order to change your life.
What a great way to end it.
So for now, thank you again so much for listening to us. And now go out. Have a great week, change your thoughts, change your life, and remember, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button below and be sure to tell someone else who may want to change their health path as well. And don't forget, you can also purchase my book, Your Plate is Your Fate, on Amazon or Audible. And if you do, please leave a review.